Alright, welcome to part 2 of my video game review. If you've missed part 1, in part 1 we reviewed The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, the sequel to the game A Link to the Past. Yes. So now that we knew, now let's review the second game, which unfortunately I've seen the sales of the game so far in places like Japan and the UK and that stuff, and apparently the game's not selling so good actually in both of them stuff. Now, I can understand because the Wii U base for that game, install base is not very huge in that stuff. And I can understand that Japan's install base for the Wii U is not very huge until eventually the Wii U starts to sell. Eventually starts to sell better. And I can completely fully understand that reason, and I completely understand that stuff. And even in Japan, this game has only sold over 100k sales as of about the first week when it was released in Japan. Sorry, I just got a bit of burps and that stuff, or some weird feeling. But anyway, that stuff. But anyways, so pretty. And so now, don't get me wrong though. That's only the retail versions actually. They didn't include the digital versions of the game. You know, like when you download the game, you did the downloadable version of the game, actually you bought via eShop. They don't really include that for some reason, but I can understand they're focusing more on the retail stuff, but still. Actually, but who knows, it could maybe change during the holiday season, or maybe sometime next year when big games like Smash Bros., Mario Kart, Bayonetta 2, and those games come out next year. Those could definitely change the sales of the Wii U completely. And that stuff. But that's just my opinion. If you haven't been paying attention to Wii U news, the game we're going to be reviewing is Super Mario 3D World for the Nintendo Wii U. Now, I do want to keep in mind, though, I did beat the single campaign of the game. I did beat the campaign, but I beat the game pretty much almost 100%. And the reason I say this is because I hadn't gotten 5 stamps yet, and I'll explain how you get the last 5 stamps in the game. Okay. And pretty much, yeah. And stuff. I did collect every green star, every gold flag, and almost all the main stamps, and like I said, just only the 5 left, and again, I'll explain them later on in this review. So anyways, let's get to Super Mario 3D World. So what is the game about? Now, you think that right off the bat it's a Mario game, you think, okay, Peach is gonna get kidnapped again by Bowser, no shit, and stuff. Not really, actually. It's actually different. Peach is actually a playable character in the game. And so, what is Bowser actually after this time? Well, it turns out he's after 7 fairies, actually, that are called the Sprixies in the game. They look just like the ones from Super Mario Bros. 2 on the NES. And so Bowser decided to kidnap them to use their power. Okay, so now it's Mario Luigi told him Peach's job to go into the new world in this clear pipe, and then go and try to defeat Bowser and his minions to save the 7 Sprixie princesses. That's pretty much what the main plot of the game. And honestly, I kind of like that they at least changed it a little bit. True, I mean, yeah, true. It does feel the same. It is the same though. But because now that Bowser's after something else, it does feel kind of refreshing though. That at least Peach is not getting kidnapped for like, how many times are like, I don't know, like hundreds of freaking times in almost every Mario game. I mean, I fully aware Peach had her own game though, but that was only on the DS, and that was her only game that started her own game, and that involved her going around saving Mario. And so, which I don't know why Nintendo never made another game that featured her. I would have loved to see them do that, but oh, I digress though. So anyways, so what are my likes toward the game? Now, my first like is similar to the first part I mentioned, the classic Zelda gameplay. It's the same thing with this. It's classic Mario gameplay, except it's set in a 3D environment mixed with 2D elements. Hence including 3D elements and that stuff, and now keep in mind though, I did play Super Mario 3D Land, and I actually got it down here. Actually, hold on. Hold on. In case you don't really know, Super Mario 3D World is actually a sequel to Super Mario 3D Land. And it's interesting because the people who made 3D World are the same makers that made 3D Land. And so it's like these two things match together, pretty much. And now there is, however, that I want to say though, is that the 3D environments in, if you remember playing Super Mario 3D Land actually, and especially Mario Galaxy. In Mario Galaxy, it was pretty much Super Mario 64 set in like space, and that's sort of similar with different mechanics that pretty much revolutionized the Mario series of how revolutionary those games were. And also, I did play Super Mario Galaxy 2. I really liked it quite a lot. I can understand why it's very revolutionary and innovative in the series. Although I'll be honest, I did find, and I know many people in this series who love those games a lot will probably hate me for saying this, I do think Mario Galaxy series, especially Mario Galaxy 2, is a tiny bit overrated. But like I said, I do like the games quite a lot. They're really good, and I can understand why they're innovative and revolutionary. I just think the Galaxy series is a little bit overrated, though. However, when the team of the Galaxy announced the 3D Land, actually, they decided not to go with the star thing like in Super Mario 64. They decided to go back to the classic Mario gameplay, but add in elements and features that were introduced in the Galaxy series, and then redo them actually. So pretty much, Super Mario 3D Land was pretty much like a mixture of Mario Galaxy slash Super Mario 64, mixed with the old 2D classic games like Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario Bros. 2, Super Mario Brothers, and especially Super Mario World, which to this day, Super Mario World remains as my favorite 2D Mario game of all time, and I still play it constantly on my Wii U. Actually, I bought on Virtual Console, and I still play it a lot to this game because how much I love that game. In 3D, what they did actually in 3D Land was that they did a mixture of the 2D stuff, the 3D stuff, like I just mentioned, and pretty much added 3D visuals and several different ways you play the game. That pretty much is very similar to Galaxy. It's very innovative, and they've actually done the same thing again in this game. True, you don't see the 3D effects though, but it still works very well. And one thing they did make a big improvement on is that they improved the camera actually in 3D. Well, now you can actually move it left or right, up and down if you want to, but not all the way though. They only have a certain limit. I can understand about the level designs and so forth. And so, if you've pretty much played Mario 3D, you pretty much know the controls. Like, Y is the action button, B or A is the attack button. And the trigger buttons are pretty much used for the crouching attacks. And so you can do different commands with the crouching moves, and so forth. It's pretty much just like that. It's pretty much that. And one change I actually do like that I was not expecting this change at all actually, that they completely changed, is that if you remember in Super Mario 3D Land, even the Mario games that had pole flags, which you get to the top of the flag, you get a 1-up. And so if you remember even a 3D Land they brought that back. In Super Mario 3D Land actually, they completely removed the 1-up completely from the game. So instead of actually getting a 1-up every time you get to the top of the flagpole, you don't get a 1-up anymore, you just get 10,000 points for a score. And when I saw that they decided to change that, whereas in the first demo of the game, back in E3, showed that you could get a 1-up at the flag, I think the reason they decided to change that is because they must have added in something that will alternate to give you lots of 1-ups. And that's what they did actually, and I'll get to that in a sec. That's stuff. So, and that leads to what I want to talk about. Speaking of that there's actually alternate ways to get 1-ups. Actually, you can either do the traditional way, get over 100 coins actually to get 1-up, or may stomp on several enemies in a row and that stuff to get 1-ups. And by the way, just a spoiler word, there is a secret in 1-2 that lets you get almost the infinite lives, which is pretty much the same infinite life trick that was from the original Super Mario Bros. On NES, just to let everyone know about that. And I just want to let everyone know. And that's a spoiler thing, though. This is a spoiler thing. Like I said, this whole review, both these parts were going to be spoilers, like I said before. Or you can use the Gold Train stage, which it only appears once in a while, though. But with the Gold Train, you can get hundreds of coins to get tons of 1-ups, especially the jackpot things, which they do appear once, and after you finish using, they don't come back for pretty much a while, though. And especially the coin box power that was also in 3D Land and New Super Mario Bros. 2 make a return in the game. And what I was quite surprised is that this name does not make a huge appearance in the game at all. It only appears in like only a couple stages from what I've seen actually. It only appears in a couple. In which honestly I'm really quite surprised actually. I'm honestly quite surprised actually, but that could be just me though. And pretty much that. Another thing I do like about the gameplay actually is that I do like the new power-ups in the game. Similar to 3D Land, they brought back some old powers, but added in some new ones to create a more creative experience in the gameplay. Like, in terms of old powers, they brought back, you already know, they're always going to bring back the old classic ones like Mushroom, Fire Flowers, and so the Tanuki suit. But when it comes to recurring items from previous Mario games, especially 3D Land, they brought back the boomerang outfit, they brought back the propeller head that was from 3D Land, and so forth. In terms of new power-ups, actually, they added in quite a few new ones. First off, they got the double cherry power-up actually, or called Double Mario as the game calls it. Where pretty much you touch this cherry actually. Now this is just like the ones from Super Bros. 2. However, unlike that game where you collected 5 of them to get a star, here every time you touch a cherry, it creates a clone of yourself actually. And as you touch more, actually, you create another one, and then you get 4, then you get 5, and then you get 10, then you get 50, you get 100, and then you get 150 again. Okay, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You don't get 100, but from what I've seen, actually, you could probably hold up to 4 clones of yourself, or maybe 6. So I'm pretty sure it's up to 5 versions of yourself, plus your original character that creates up to 6. So up to 6, I believe, is the maximum that there is a level, but that depends how many cherries there are in some those. And it does appear a little bit, not as often as some of the other powers, but still quite a bit though. So, and they also had a new type of power that is attached to your head called a Ken box. Actually, where basically is that you become a cannon box and you can shoot, and you can pretty much shoot cannonballs actually. As you hit one enemy, if there's several others close by, it can kill multiple enemies at once. Actually. And by holding down the Y button, not only can you hold on to it, you can also increase the range of the attack though. But it does not affect the hitbox of how much any enemies hits. It doesn't affect it at all, but it allows you to do it. Plus, there are some secrets in the game that pretty much that you really do need these powers to actually get through. But possibly the new power that's probably my favorite one, and I personally think a lot of people agree, actually is the cat suit in the game, which is pretty much the main new item in the game. Now I will admit there are some things though about that maybe some people might find annoying, that it's super easy, that every time you use a cat fit, it's super easy to actually get to the top of the flag to get points, and it's very super easy to get platforms. A lot of times it could definitely save your life from a missed jump and that stuff, and I'll definitely admit that's definitely true. But the reason I actually like this outfit is because it pretty much have elements of a kitty cat, you would know, from a kid. It would pounce, it would scratch and claw, it could climb up walls, and so forth. It has all the elements of a cat because, let's go face it, cats are pretty much the most popular pets in Japan, actually. And this game was made in Japan anyway, first, and then came to North America a day later. So I can understand why the main item would be a cat suit, actually. Like I said, it's very useful. And it also has very good attacks, and plus with this kind of thing, it comes in handy quite a lot for defeating bosses and that stuff. And speaking of bosses, that's what I like about the game. Unlike 3D Land, where it just repeats the same 3 bosses like Bowser and 2 Koopa Kids, so that's here they do bring them back, but not as much. And they bring in a couple new bosses in the game. They have one that's a giant fireball made out of rock. They got one that's made out of like a tin can, which is pretty much a bully actually that hasn't been seen since Super Mario 64 actually. And there's also Koopa Troopas, there's Chuck, let me see what else. I need to see, what was the other one? Oh yeah, there's also Motley, which is pretty much made out of several hundreds of clones actually, made out of glove. And from how many of them I've seen in one place, especially the amount of shockwaves and stuff coming out, I mean, holy crap, there was so much going on in that game. Like, you probably could not do that many stuff at the same time on one screen that you could do on previous last gen consoles. I mean, heck, You couldn't even do that on the Wii because that would overburn the system. That stuff overheated so much and it would have frame. See, so I give kudos to Nintendo for managing to accomplish that. That especially there's the Histocrat boss, which is pretty much a snake boss that's pretty much just like the snake boss from Super Mario Bros. 2. That hasn't been in the game. However, this one calls up snakes on the plates, and you have to jump on top of them either with the Katsu or by yourself. Jump on top of their heads to gain points and that stuff. But don't get me wrong though, as you progress through the game, actually, they do make a return, this time trying to be much harder than they were before. And that's just to let everyone know. Now, I just want to check the time yet again, actually. I just want to check. And I got 9 minutes left, alright. And I do want to say, though, that the final boss of the game, which is Bowser, your final show, just like in every Mario game, I have to say this, though. This is actually the most unique original Bowser fight in years, actually. If you remember in previous Mario games, all he did in his final battle with Mario is that he always grows into a giant. A lot of times there's always a way to kill him, and that's how it always fails. I like the way how they used him in the game. And again, this is a spoiler, so do not watch this part if you don't want to hear it. Bowser actually turns into a cat. I'm not kidding you, that actually is true. Bowser does use the cat power soon in the game. Final level, he turns into a giant cat. Plus he uses double cherry power to turn tons of versions of himself in a giant form. Which, in my opinion, just like I said, in Super Mario 3D... no, not sorry. Just like on the Wii and maybe on Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3, I don't think you can create that many giant, big things in a single row. Plus that many stuff, actually. But possibly, in my opinion, the best part of the whole game is, just like 3D Land, there's a humongous amount of replay value content in the game. Just like 3D Land, there's a humongous amount of content, massive amounts of gameplay, several worlds, tons of levels, and many, many more. There's quite a lot of content that's in this game. Lots of really good special worlds and that stuff. Now, the only thing I want to mention, though, however, there is one thing I do want to mention. In case you might be wondering about the co-op mode, me and my friend actually did play it yesterday, actually on December 2nd. It's really quite very good. And what we found out is when we played the game cooperatively, it turns out that when you get to the harder levels or progress through the game further, the level difficulty, whether you're either competing for an high score where you get a crown or maybe you beat enemies to get higher points than your opponent, and that sort of stuff, or just working together in the game to get to the end of the level. However, we found out when you get to the hard stages, the game becomes much harder, and it's mostly due to one problem I have with the gameplay, and that's the camera. So when you play the game cooperatively, a lot of times you can't really change the camera in a different angle because you both are on the same screen. And if you get too far away from each other, you can't really change the camera. And the other problem is that when one player or the leader goes too far ahead of the other, the icon for the character would appear on the screen, actually. And what would happen is that when that happens, your partner can't really see what they're doing, actually. And there's either a chance they're either going to get hit, they're going to fall off and die, or something like that. However, they made up for the problem due to one reason: the bubble system. When you're playing the game cooperatively, if your partner presses the L button, actually on either the Pro Controller, Classic Controller, the gamepad, or probably any other button, any other controller, actually, when you pretty much get to that stuff, actually, they can pretty much press the L button to save themselves, actually. Even from death, if they manage to mash the button and that stuff, and they fall and die, they can use the bubble they want, but a lot of times the game won't let you do it. Actually, probably because I think they know that would be cheap in it, so they decide that a lot of times it won't work in that stuff unless depending on the spot, I guess, but I don't know. No, but it's like I said, though, outside the really good controls, like, the controls are actually pretty good, but they're definitely much better than 3D Land's controls, and I'm glad for that, because that was my only complaint in 3D Land, and I'm glad about that. Like I said, my only complaint, though, about the game, actually, is that, major complaint, is the camera angle when you're playing the game cooperatively. Single player, it's definitely not a huge issue at all. Like, not even once. So for the gameplay, I absolutely love the gameplay. Classic Mario gameplay, massive amount of content. Even though there's not as many special worlds, no, but the levels in those special worlds really are extremely hard. They get much harder as you progress through the worlds, through the special worlds. Especially the final level. I'm going to tell you, in my Green Star walkthrough, I tried to beat it without using a power-up once. Not one single one. Let me tell you, if you don't, unless you have a backup power-up, that level is a mother freaking bitch to beat. And that stuff. It's almost as hard as the level from 3D Land if you're knocked out, because it's all platform. If you fall, you die instantly. And so you have to literally be careful with the final level, because trust me, it took me over 70 deaths to beat that stage without using a single power, and it's insanely hard. Even when we tried playing it a few times, it was much harder when playing the game cooperatively. It was way more harder. And so I love the gameplay. And I know I wasted a lot of time talking about the gameplay, but honestly the gameplay in my opinion is the best part of every Mario game and stuff. It's a ton of fun. For those who may be wondering about the graphics, like God, let me tell you, the graphics in this are so gorgeous. I mean, my God. Like, true, when you first look at it, it does have good graphics, but not as good as Galaxy. But when you get further in the game, you'll realize that this game is way more gorgeous than you think. It's literally that good. It's so gorgeous. The lighting effects, like, there's so much light in the game that I don't think you could not do that on last gen consoles. Especially the frames per second. I mean, let me tell you, if you have a 1080p game, this game does run at 1080p at 60 frames per second all the way through the game. That stuff, it runs smoothly. It felt like a really good smooth experience. It was insanely good. The graphics are outstanding. They're super gorgeous, lighting's impressive, and much more. That stuff. So, how do I rate Super Mario 3D World? Well, then I got a couple minutes left, so let's finish it off. So, how do I review Super Mario 3D World? Well, like I said, classic Mario gameplay, as much massive amounts of content like 3D Land, so if you're a Mario, regardless if you're a Mario expert or not though, there's a humongous amount of massive content in this game that will keep you occupied for so many hours. If not, it may take you at least a week or so to beat it 100%. In case you might be wondering about the last 5 stamps, the last 5 stamps tells you that you need to actually beat every level with every character in the game, every character, in order to get their stamp action. Let's think about it. That would take you many more hours to beat, and since stamps are necessary to get to the final level, especially since they're used for Miiverse features and that stuff, which is kind of unique, plus you got the Ghost Me the Race, and then you can use them to find secrets and that stuff. That's quite a massive amount. That's even more massive amount of content in this game than there was in 3D Land. Let's keep in mind there's also the Captain Toad stages and that stuff, which are pretty unique and interesting that he used the gamepad, and especially like the gamepad makes several uses of the gamepad, but that's if you're only playing the gamepad. And there are a couple levels outside of the Captain Toad stage that does use the gamepad for it, but a lot of times you're mostly going to be playing it with any 5 control schemes you like. And personally, in my opinion, the gamepad Pro Controller and the classic Wii Pro Controller are pretty much the best ones to use, in my personal opinion. The other two are completely fine in that. So, and then let's also keep in mind the graphics are outstanding and super gorgeous and much more. I give Super Mario 3D World a 9.5 out of 10. Yep, this is, in my opinion, this is a Game of the Year contender for me. Actually, it's definitely the best game for the Wii. Definitely worth a buy if you own a Wii U console. And if you plan on getting a Wii U this Christmas, I highly recommend this alongside maybe really good games like Wonderful 101, Zelda Wind Waker HD, and Pikmin 3, and especially Rayman Legends for the Wii U. I highly recommend it, but the only problem is I don't know if many people still give a crap about the game or not after seeing the sales of the game. But like I said, it could change maybe in Christmas time. It could definitely change. So that's it for Super Mario 3D World. In my opinion, it's a Game of the Year contender. My favorite game for the Wii U this year. Best one, 9.5 out of 10. So thanks for watching my review, and I'll see you guys later for the next Game with You, which will probably not be in the next few months due to Christmas time and such. But like I said, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this 2-part review.